what is the goal? Why? Why would you want to do something like, this or whatever this is, right? Grow the brand, grow your name. If you can find a clear and strong reason, okay, that's what's going to pull someone to actually do things that they need to do to have a successful brand inside of their business, inside of that kind of ecosystem. So, you'll hear people say things like, it's not worth it. It's a waste of time. I don't see an ROI. These all correlate to not having a clear or big enough end goal that would pull someone to do those certain things.
Hey, creative, are you ready to discuss profits, the money, the ways to make it happen? The Profitable Creative Podcast is for you, the creative, how you define it. Videographers, photographers, entrepreneurs, marketing agencies, you get it. CEO of Core Group and author Christian Brim interviews industry experts, creative entrepreneurs, and professionals alike who strive to be creative and make money at the same time. Sound like you? Tune in now. It's time for profit.
Welcome to another episode of The Profitable Creative, the only place on the interwebs where you will learn how to turn your passion into profit. I am your host, Christian Brim. A special shout out to our one listener, yes, one in Tokyo. Actually, I said Tokyo last time. Let's take that again. Special shout out to our one listener in Washington, Virginia. Never been to Virginia. I've been to Washington, both the DC and the state, but never Washington, Virginia. Hopefully I can get there. Joining me today is Jeremy Bishop of Influencer Club. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. And I actually just got back from Tokyo. So shout out to that
Nice.
Tokyo listener. Yeah.
It's on my bucket list for sure. I'm trying to talk my wife into it. She doesn't like traveling that far, but I'm like, you're not getting any younger. And everybody that I've spoken to that have been to Japan said it's like top shelf, top tier, top destination. Have to go. What was your experience?
Yeah, 10 out of 10. So excited to book another trip back. Well worth the long travel. I understand that can definitely be rough. It was a bit of jet lag and kind of getting into the groove of things, but overall, I mean, Tokyo, the city was absolutely incredible, very inspiring. We could do an entire 2-3 hours.
So was this business or pleasure that you went to?
It was pleasure. Yeah.
Nice.
Myself, my wife, that was actually that was the honeymoon, was
very nice.
Japan for 2 weeks. Yep.
Well, that's interesting because a dear friend of mine got married in October, and that's where they honeymooned, was Tokyo. So
nice. Yeah. Really great time.
So for the benefit of our listeners, Jeremy, give us the brief introduction to who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, hey, everybody listening. Great to meet you. My name's Jeremy Bishop. Started as an entrepreneur when I was about 19 years old. I got introduced to a company and had an opportunity to represent a product and build an affiliate network. And this is kind of where I had my first little tiny bit of success. And I built this affiliate network of like 5,000 people. And after a few years, I get a phone call, and basically the company had a problem, and they shut down overnight. And so I was sitting there and I looked back and I was like, man, if I could have done one thing more, I would have focused on building my name just as much as any company or product or service that I represent. And so that led me down this mission, this path, this journey of, I guess, what we would call now kind of personal branding, right? And so all things considered, growing your own name, growing your reputable brand, your credibility through social media, and everything that can come along with that. And so, fast forward 6-7 years later, now we have Influencer Club, and was very fortunate to have a mentor that in my early 20s that helped people like Patrick Bet-David and Grant Cardone and Damon John, Kevin O'Leary. He helped these individuals go reach their first, 1 million plus followers on their social media and build a really strong brand. And so that's what I spent a lot of time and reinvesting in myself and my business in my early 20s. And now we have Influencer Club, where we help hundreds of other high performers do the same, build a really strong personal brand for themselves.
I was watching, I think it was on Netflix recently, a biography on Martha Stewart. And I don't know if you are old enough to remember Martha Stewart, but I didn't became aware of her right before she got really big because I wasn't her target market, clearly. But my wife sure knew who she was. And the interesting part of that story was that one was that she was a $1 billion brand, and the first one to really in the modern age accomplish that. And that was fascinating to me because it was like, what exactly is the value here? Well, it's her. And the second thing was the when she took her company public, a lot of the investment bankers were real shy on the deal because it was all centered around her. And like if something happened to her reputation, then the whole thing collapsed. And they were a little prescient in that because that's exactly what happened. But I guess what you're talking about is creating little mini Marthas.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a great example, but the thing that everyone wants to have, if you look at it like the scale, okay, most people have hardly any control or ownership over their industry or their any given service or what they represent that brings that earns them money, or allows them to do business. Okay, so whether it's the real estate company that they work for, or the corporation that they work for. And so this is not just for the individual solo entrepreneur that needs to build this brand. We can get into this, but you know, the first 5 years I was working or partnered with someone else. I was working for another company, and I built my personal brand inside of that company so that one day, if I ever needed to switch companies, make a move, or go out on my own, as an example, Martha Stewart, she's by herself. That was the entire business, was all her. But people out, everyone out there can start building some personal brand equity, right? No matter what they're doing, so that they have a little bit of control and a foundation as they move forward.
So do you at Influencer Club work primarily with entrepreneurs or employees or both? I mean, what's that breakdown look like?
Yeah, I think, well, it depends on, of course, kind of what someone might consider themselves in any given position. Okay, so they might be inside a big mortgage company, they might be a real estate agent, right? Or then you have a solo real estate investor who truly has their own company, their own fund. Or you just have a serial entrepreneur, right, who has many companies as an investor. So I would say high level producers in any industry that are ready to now kind of reinvest and start correlating what they've done in real life, okay, the success that they've created in real life, and start correlating that with their brand, their credibility on social media.
So what is the one or two biggest challenges people have in establishing their brand?
Oh man, well, I think the first is understanding that you have to do something special in real life first.
Mm.
That's kind of the we have a saying in our company, which is we don't want to make bad people more popular. Okay.
There's enough
And,
of
and
that.
yeah, and what I mean by that is, you really have to create a foundation. If you decide that you want to create some sort of reputable big name for yourself, you have to have something to be able to really back that up, right? So,
Do
just
people come to you without their bona fides wanting you to like create something that isn't there?
Well, at this point, not necessarily, just because we don't really cultivate conversations with maybe, let's say, the individual that hasn't already, right, created that foundation. But of course, over the past 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I'll say we have all seen many individuals that, want to create the facade first and then try and fill in the blanks after. And again, hey, someone
Okay,
can go
well,
viral and create a brand, but I would highly encourage most to build something real first, and then it'll make everything else easier.
that's kind of interesting because you look at, you know, people like the Kardashians or to a lesser extent, Paris Hilton, people that became famous for being famous, like, and versus a Damon John who had, bona fides before he became really popular. I mean, or a household name. So, I mean, how does it work that people like the Kardashians become billion-dollar brands without really ever doing anything?
Well, look, there's a lot done, right? First off, we can't say that they're not doing anything, right? I mean, that's a whole journey in
No,
itself.
no,
But
I'm
to
not
your
disputing
point,
that they're successful, but initially,
right?
it's like those two are flipped. Damon and the Kardashians are
Yeah,
flipped in
so
how it works.
there's two foundations, right? And this is exactly what people have to be clear on. Is on one hand, you have the 1%, 0.0001% of what could happen. Okay,
Right.
you could go viral. You could be the next Justin Bieber that gets picked up, by someone coming across a YouTube video, and the next thing you know, you're on the way to become, a worldwide
The Hawk
phenomenon.
Tua girl comes to
Sure,
mind.
as an example, exactly. So, and again, that could have been something that died in 24 hours, or somehow, it caught enough traction, and the person leaned into it enough that they ended up, starting a journey down their brand and business. So again, that is a 0.001%. And for most, okay, not to discourage anybody from trying to reach whatever that is, and create that, because again, there's not much of a layout as to how that may or may not happen. But for someone who has a business and wants to create their social as a business tool, okay, someone who is already in the journey of their business in their life and wants to add to their ecosystem, that's this other side, which is the Damon John as an example. Great example. I mean, this is somebody who, like many of our members, they've built extremely successful businesses, and they have zero social media presence. They're not being invited to the interviews. They're not being invited to the speaking events. They don't have some, high level of credibility on Instagram or any platform, but they have a massive company and they've done some incredible things, right? So that's most people. Even if you're worth $100 million, there are still individuals that go and hire a team, build this thing, and grow, and put money behind it and push it. So those are kind of the two different things. So there's the 0.001%, going viral for a reason that could be luck mixed with timing, all of these things. And then there's building and growing, for the purpose of growing a business tool and building the brand. And so, yeah, those are certainly two different journeys.
Today's episode of The Profitable Creative is brought to you by Core Group. Are you tired of doing it all yourself? Do you feel like you have no plan? Let Core Group guide you to build the business of your dreams. Core Group, your go-to accountant for creatives.
I have a colleague who's very successful, and he and I were talking about this podcast. He's not in the creative industry at all. He's in IT, and he's like, "Well, tell me about it." And I was like, "Well, I should have you on the show," joking. And he goes, "Why would I want to do that?" And I'm like, "Well, for popularity." And he goes, popularity is a tax. He said, like, I don't want popularity. I don't, and it's true, because like he is very secretive. Like there's no public persona of him anywhere, and that's the way he wants it. So how would you convince him that he needs to build a social brand?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. And I think that's kind of the really important conversation that everybody has to have with themselves is, what is the goal? Why? Why would you want to do something like, this or whatever this is, right? Grow the brand, grow your name. If you can find a clear and strong reason, okay, that's what's going to pull someone to actually do things that they need to do to have a successful brand inside of their business, inside of that kind of ecosystem. So, you'll hear people say things like, it's not worth it, it's a waste of time, I don't see an ROI. You know, these all correlate to not having a clear or big enough end goal that would pull someone to do those certain things, right? So for that individual, it just simply might not be in the cards, and it might not make sense whatsoever for them to do it. Or one day there might there might be a goal that shows itself. As an example, maybe he doesn't own his own company, maybe he works for a big corporation right now, but one day,
Oh no, he owns the company. Like no,
oh, okay, perfect.
But he's one of those people. Like he got in trouble because he had an event for his customers, and it was a CEO event, and he, the CEO of his company, didn't show up. And like the feedback at the event was, this is a CEO event, but the CEO of the company is not here. And so like he begrudgingly went the next year. So like maybe it's a social aversion. Maybe he just doesn't like people. I don't know. But my head of revenue, when she started, she's huge on brand, and since we published the book and launched the podcast, she's started talking to me about my personal brand. And initially, I was very resistant to that idea, and it was probably more along the lines of I don't like self promotion. I was raised with a value system that like if you're good, other people will talk about you. You don't need to talk about yourself. That's kind of been my value. But talking to my business coach about it, he kind of reframed it and is like, if you're trying to accomplish your goal of helping creatives with their businesses, don't you want more people to know about you? And I'm not 100% there yet. I still have some mental block around it, but I'm starting to see the value to the cause, to the purpose, not to me personally. So if you were going to pitch me on why I need to use Influencer Club, what would that conversation look like?
Yeah, I think I would start by asking about those goals that you have in the business, right? And a lot of people's answers are very contradictive. And so that's kind of the conversation that we would have to have. And I would have to kind of present that to you. And again, what I do for my members is not something that I can convince them to do, nor is it something I want to convince them to do, because it's not like, you need this new dishwasher, it's going to make your life better, and once they buy it, they're good to go, and they walk out the door. No, I mean, this is like an 18-month journey together minimum.
Right.
This is a relationship that's going to grow and grow and grow. And by the way, I only would like to build success stories that represent my company. So I'm not looking necessarily to help somebody, get their feet wet, have a bad experience, turn around, regret it all, and add to the to the negativity around building a brand or using social media. We want to help people kind of figure out how this can be a helpful aid to their business and to their life. And so, you just mentioned the goal of wanting to impact more people, and building a brand and social. I'm sure you have great relationships with the people that do business with you now, and I'm sure they do business with you because they like you, not just because you have a great product or service. Okay.
Right.
I'm sure you've probably had people refer you because they like you. Okay.
Right.
And so, you have a podcast, you're literally, here building relationship and building face value with your listeners. And so, there is kind of this tough love that a lot of people need, which is, we got to get over some of these little things that are holding us back from doing what could make a bigger impact in your business and your life and for others. And so it's like, if you're not going to do it for you, do it for, the next 100 people that wouldn't
Yeah.
know about you. Right. So
Yeah. Because I think at the core of it, it's the resistance I have is it seems egotistical, right? And self promotion seems egotistical, and I'm not comfortable with that.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've never had anyone go out of their way to promote me. You understand? And even when you mentioned you said you had a great line, which is, if I'm great, others will see it. I think about my mentors and my grandfather. He's 96 years old, and maybe years ago, in his little hometown of Delaware, if you're great, people will see you, and they'll find you. Maybe that was the case. Now, there are people out there that are terrible at what they do, and they are better known than you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And yes. And I maybe that's a little bit of it too. My hesitancy is that, and I think this is a valid question. Like, if you're going to put yourself out there and promote yourself, then you better be able to deliver the goods, right? I mean,
sure.
the worst thing would be to promote something that isn't real. To your point of making, because I'm thinking there is a tax group which will go unnamed, but they're extremely popular on social channels, and we've kind of been spying them along the way, and some of the stuff is just flat out fraudulent. I mean, like, what they're saying is going to land somebody in jail, but they're very good at promoting themselves. And I guess, that's marketing in general, right? I mean, you can put a lipstick on a pig, and
So that, to your point, I mean, that's the phrase about, I don't want to make bad people more popular.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I don't know, for anybody listening, you can take this with a grain of salt, but I do believe that if your intention is to go do great business and make an impact, and it could be any industry. Okay. It doesn't need to be, launching a rocket into space and all of that. You can do great business just by entering the marketplace. You have a little bit of responsibility to, if there's so much of this BS out there,
Yeah.
then really the one guy who has something special, you don't want to self promote, and you're going to let, all the rest of. So, I mean, I've literally watched tax strategy companies grow massive brands, become extremely popular, show up to every single networking event, and dominate on social media, doing the wrong things for many years. And then at one point they just shut down. They couldn't, there wasn't enough business. It wasn't real, and it died, because that's what happens to a lot of things that, aren't real. Right. So you let that kind of have its journey and have its life. But I do believe that that's a great point, because a lot of people spend so much time analyzing what everyone else is doing, and this person's great and this person's bad, and I don't want to be like this person, or I don't want to be like this company. But self-promotion gets kind of a bad rep. Self-promotion comes in many forms. Okay, self-promotion is this podcast. Self-promotion is
True.
all of the great clients that have amazing things to say about you. We've got a testimonial page with 200 amazing members, and all of the nice things they have to say. So, all of that's important too, right? Not just you shouting about how great you are, right?
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. So let's pivot a second. You were involuntarily, I don't use the word terminated. This relationship that you had initially at 19 went away. What was that like, making that transition to being on your own?
It wasn't a light bulb moment. It was definitely a slow burn. It was okay. For anybody that's out there in young in business, I was in the mindset of, man, this is going to be a company I'm going to be with, forever,
Right.
maybe. Right. So I learned very quickly. Okay. And I looked around and I was like, what do I still have? Okay. I have uh, reputation with the people I've met. I have relationships with the people I've connected with and done business with. And it was through that network that I found my next partnership and venture with someone in that network, and moved into growing in helping others with their social media. And again, that's kind of what led down a really long path of, personal branding and growth. And went down to South Florida. But I didn't start my own company until many, many years later. Okay. And so, again, this journey of the personal brand was happening inside of more opportunities as you continue to grow and move forward. So my light bulb moment now looking back is, I'm really glad that I did spend time focusing on building my name, even when you might say there was no point, because I wasn't a solo entrepreneur at the moment. I didn't own my own business and then decide, okay, this is now important. I kind of started building that so that no matter what happened, I'm kind of building my own home over here that I can always come back to. Right. So yeah, I hope that gives
Yeah.
anybody a little insight.
Did you start out, when you started your company, did you start out doing personal branding? Or was that something you came to
Yeah,
after you started?
I was in a previous partnership and had grown a company with another guy and in South Florida, and uh, again had the privilege of working around a lot of the people around Grant Cardone, and a lot of these individuals. We helped some pretty big names grow to their first large numbers and brand, and so I had built a lot of relationships through that time period. And when it was time to kind of make a decision and make a move and go out on my own, my wife and I started our companies and continued on and better
Okay.
created a better service and something that we owned.
So that was my follow-up question is that you decided that you wanted to do it yourself because you wanted the independence, or you saw a better mousetrap, a better way to do it?
Yeah, all things considered, one of the biggest real motivators was I didn't like the way that clients and individuals were being treated, in this previous partnership. And and in that position, it's tough because I only have so much control, I only have so much say. And so, I left in a time period where I would have earned more money that year than I ever had before. Right. The company was doing, revenue wise, extremely well. But, it didn't feel too good. Right. And so there was a point where, that move and transition had to be made. And, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the number of guests that I've had that have left. Some knew from the outset that they wanted to start a business. Some were forced into it because of life changes, and then others left really good jobs or situations, even like changing. They had one business and then they switched to another and left money on the table in doing so. Was that a mental challenge for you?
Was that tough to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was tough to come to terms with the fact that this relationship that I had built with this other individual, after many years. I mean, we had, again, I was more or less the VP of this company, and we had become extremely close. I mean, we were best friends. I mean, we ran this thing from sun up to sundown, and watched the company grow from a few $1,000s a month to 300,000-400,000 a month in revenue by the time that I walked away. But things change, with the times and with the growth. And so, it's tough to come to terms with some of that. I had to have some really tough conversations with myself and with my now wife. And, again, sometimes it takes a fresh pair of eyes from the outside looking in, to just kind of, you know, help you see what you might already know is there and happening. And so, I was pretty aware of just, kind of the tough stuff that I was dealing with. And you know what? I was really, really great at dealing with problems and challenges. And when clients were, having bad experiences, okay.
Right.
One of my skills, not that I want to use it for bad, is to have and build really great relationships with people. And so I noticed towards that tail end that, I don't think this is for the better. Right. So yeah, it was tough. It was really tough.
Did something change with your partner, or was it that they weren't who you thought they were?
No, something was changing. Yeah, something changed. It's really a shame. I mean, this is, an individual that once we broke off the business relationship, I haven't spoken to in,
Right.
6+ years. But yeah, something changed, and hey, maybe it was a growing pain, maybe it's a growing phase, and, hope for the best, later on. But at that time, yeah, it was definitely a pretty clear indicator. Your parents teach you right and wrong. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, the more time I'd spent in that environment, I would have been leaning further and further and further over,
Yeah.
over the edge. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, kudos for you identifying that and making that choice.
And I want to say something, because you mentioned, you know, owning your own business, becoming this entrepreneur that, there's this big excitement around starting your own company. And if you've ever heard someone like Gary Vaynerchuk talk about this, I love his message, because you don't have to be the individual that has to start a company to have incredible success and to be in the best position. And so, me leaving and having to start my own company, look, there are a lot of things that we can talk about that are big challenges that I did not have when I was a part of that, when I was in that previous partnership. Okay, I had it, in fact, I was in a great position. I did what I did best, and I, earned my revenue, earned my money, and I didn't have to think about payroll. I didn't have to think about the office space and the overhead. So, there are a lot of things that are not so sexy about having a business, and it's important that people also know that they can succeed at a high level without needing to go be the.
No, I think you're 100% right, and I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs that aren't cut out for it, so to speak, and they would be better off financially for sure, but mentally too. Just going back and being great for somebody else. Oftentimes they have to go through that process of starting a business and it not working to come to that conclusion. But that actually segued into my next set of questions: is what were the challenges that you didn't know you knew didn't know you were going to have in starting your own business?
Well, I really had a lot of training and a lot of great experience in working so closely in the growth of that previous company. And so, that gave me a lot. That gave me a really great foundation. I like to create something from nothing. I really enjoy that process. It's fun. It's an art. And again, like you said, not everyone, can wake up not knowing how they're going to get X, Y, and Z done by the end of the week, and how they're going to make sure that there's food on the table and money in the bank account. And so I enjoy that side. Actually, I think there was a week or two in that previous company where I was put on salary, and it was it was just the worst 2 weeks of my life. Right. So I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I would rather not know what's going to happen for a potential incredible week or the worst week ever. Right. I want to experience that. And so, but that's just for me. But the challenges, Yeah, I mean, again, it's like I'm going to tell you, it was fun to figure these things out. It was fun to have zero business. In fact, we kind of made a test out of it. I remember telling my wife, "Hey, let's before we create a website and do all this fancy stuff that everybody likes to do when they start a company, I said, let's not do any of that until we at least just do our first 100 grand in revenue. Let's just do 100,000 in revenue real quick before we have a website, and let's just see if people are going to believe in us and believe in maybe our personal brand, social media. Let's just do any of that before we do anything else." And we did that before we even created a website, right? And so the boots on the ground, pick up the phone, get to it, get to the point, get to the real MVP, which is what is your most valuable action step that you could be taking. When you focus right on that, that's going to help you start really actually get to the point of starting a business and getting some money through the door, getting some clients, some relationships happening. So the challenges come later when it's time to grow and scale. Okay. And you have to take care of a team of people, and you need to make sure that, yeah, you need to make sure that everybody's taken care of. That's a big responsibility. I wouldn't call it, scary, but I mean, it's a big responsibility.
Can be.
Right? Yeah, it can be. It can be. Yes.
Hey, listeners, are you ready to turn your passion into profit? Then grab a copy of Profit First for Creatives. Click the link in the show notes to purchase a copy. And if you're not ready to make that full commitment, you can download a free copy of the first chapter. Check it out right now. Yeah, well, no, I love that you started with first things first, because it's easy in business to get distracted by things that don't really matter. And I think there's a safety, an intellectual safety of dealing with those things that you can control. Like I'm gonna go build a website because I know how to do that and I know what the outcome is going to be. But if I start picking up the phone and soliciting clients, and I'm just starting out, I haven't done it yet in the business. That's something you don't know what the outcome is going to be, and so you're naturally hesitant to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that kind of falls into a lot of other questions, like who you decide to partner with. If you decide to partner with anyone, you have to kind of take a look at your skill set and be very real. If you are the individual that can do everything but pick up the phone, you need to make sure that you fill in that gap.
Yeah, I would say that it'd be difficult. I mean, maybe if somebody had a lot of experience and a lot of social capital to bring to the table, but I think every entrepreneur starting out has got to be able to sell at least a little bit. They may not be great at it, but my attorney, my business attorney, describes business partnerships as marriage without sex. And, in a lot of ways, people get into partnerships because they feel like they have something that they can't do. And they see somebody else that's good at it, and they think that that's a good match, not looking at, maybe to your experience, what the quality of that person is, because it is an intimate relationship. It's not just a combining of skill sets.
Yeah. I mean, we could have another 2-hour conversation about how to pick the right business partner. And you know what? I don't think, even with 2 hours of advice from your experience and mine and many others, I don't think you could still give someone the how to on that, right? So, I mean, there are stories of entrepreneurs taking 1,000 interviews before hiring the right person. Now that's a brilliant concept, because it is so easy to be swayed by one thing or another, whether it's because you like the person, you like their personality, or you like their skill set and you're willing to deal with the personality. I mean, there are so many ways that this could go, but There was someone who interviewed 1,000 individuals to find their business partner. And again, if you have a real foundation like that and you're willing to go through the hard work, truly the hard work to find that right person, you're definitely going to be a lot better off.
Yeah, and to that point, I think a lot of people are reactive. They're fearful of, like, I've got to have this, and I need to have this, and so they latch on to the first thing that looks good, instead of doing what you call the hard work. I think my advice to anybody, any business owner that is thinking about a business partnership would be, just like, can you hire it? Like, can you hire an employee? Can you hire a contractor? I even if you have the bandwidth, can you learn the skill yourself? I mean, is it something that you're just telling yourself you can't do, versus you just don't want to do it?
Yeah, partnering and writing up the percentage is again one of these fancy fun things about creating the business, right? So it's the same as the website, it's the same as the business cards and the t-shirts.
It's the honeymoon, right?
Exactly. It's the honeymoon phase. You're going to get 25% because you're really great at this. And yes, I promise I'm going to do this, and this. These are my responsibilities. This is the value I bring. Look, the reality is a lot more black and white than we make it sometimes. It's like, are you bringing money to the table? Do you have a list of clients? Do you have a track record, skill set, etc.? And yeah, like you said, is it even necessary for you to partner to some capacity, right? So,
right.
Yeah, these are definitely great questions before getting in, before just doing the exciting thing, because partnership is a long road.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those principles, apply to hiring employees as well, because it's an easier relationship to get out of than a partnership, but a lot of the principles still hold true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the kind of type 1 or type 2 decision, right? Meaning there's one that's easily reversible, and
right.
You can fire, hire, make the decision. The minute somebody shows you the dark side, you can get rid of them, or you love them, you can promote them and push them up. On the partnership side, again, things might come out way in the future when things are a lot bigger and more complicated. Yeah. So my grandfather, whether anybody thinks this is good advice or not, my grandfather told me, Jeremy, you don't want to necessarily own a company with somebody just because. Having the percentage sounds really sexy. I'm going to be an owner of this company. He said, but you could also just take the money. You can also just find a way to have a great deal and earn that money and be paid very well and not have to. As an example, if I had been a partner, which I was not, if I had owned part of that company in the past, that would have been a hell of a lot more complicated than just walking away when it was time for me to move on.
Yeah, 100%. So, Jeremy, how do people find out more about Influencer Club and you and what you do?
Yeah, well, hopefully there will be some links or something here to check out.
Yeah, so in the show notes.
I think we'll have an Influencer Club VIP page here that everyone can take a look at. Just some other members' examples, some individuals that have kind of gone through this big personal brand journey that we have chatted about. And if you like anyone or you're interested in kind of their stories more in depth, or if you'd like to do kind of like a free brand audit overview with one of our team, feel free. I'm sure there are lots of links there to kind of book a call from that page, and our team would obviously love to chat with you.
Perfect. Jeremy, I appreciate your time today and your experience share, your candor, your honesty. Listeners, if you like what you hear, rate the show, follow the show, share the show. If you don't like what you hear, shoot us a message and I'll get rid of me and Jeremy. Until then, ta-ta for now.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Profitable Creative. Until next time, you money lovers. And don't forget, Profit First for Creatives is live via Amazon. Link below.